G'day viewers, my name's Graham Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists do what they do.
Well, hi folks. Well, we are in the new Colour in Your Life studio today, and we're going to be filming a fantastic lady who's an erotic artist. Also, I'd like to thank Andy Nevar, who is part of the Wildscapes gallery in the Green Cold era, which is fantastic as well. We'll put his details up later on. But we are starting a new venture with the way that the world's going, and we have a lady with us today called Anita Nevar. Anita, thanks for being on the show. Now, Anita is an erotic artist, and the very, very stimulating paintings to say the least. But you came from a very repressive religious background when you first started what you were doing. It's going back a few years ago now, but you really were restricted in the whole aspect of your life. And in these days, you love painting people, sexuality, the LGBT community. Music's got a big part to do with what you produce as well. But sort of tell me about coming out of that situation and then understanding what your purpose was as an artist as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I was very oppressed under religious oppression and domestic violence and so forth, and I was always a sexual being. I remember that from an early age, but because I had to repress that, there was no outlet for me to let that out. And so, you know, coming out of that in my mid-20s, I had all of this sort of frustration and all of these things in me creatively that wanted to come out. And, you know, where sex was taboo back when I was growing up, I was now allowed to express that. So with my painting, what initially happened was that was my form of therapy, and all these things just came rushing out, and this is where I am. So this is the beginnings. Yeah.
And it's very much. I mean, you're involved with the LGBTQ community, and then the painting that we're actually doing today is of Art Simone.
Yes.
And he's a drag queen who's a friend of yours. The world really is sort of fairly sexually repressed, as you probably well realise now. Your work really amounts to the fact that you're expressing your freedom and your attitude towards that new sexuality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, again, growing up, homosexuality was something that was really frowned upon, and, you know, there was a lot of judgment, and so coming into this world where I was seeing people really expressing themselves and happy to be who they wanted to be, and, you know, Art Simone really captured my eyes. I mean, she's beautiful and she's living her authenticity, and you know, it's wonderful to see queer arts represented, and so it's celebrating that individuality. So yeah, I'm a big fan of supporting the LGBTQ community and really immersing myself in love in all forms, really. It's a beautiful thing.
I think that's very, very important. I mean, we just we look at the world through jealousy and hate and repression. It's just ridiculous that we do that. So
yeah.
But we'll go on. We'll start the painting very shortly. I think Anita's work is just quite amazing. And Art Simone, thank you for your time as well. And it's pretty cool. But let's go over to the easel and let's make a start on this, because it's going to be a fascinating day.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All right, well, I can see that you've mapped out Art Simone. Let's make a start on that, and we'll talk about it as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done my sketch, and what I usually like to do first is actually put my masking tape on my straight line. So what that actually gives me is, with my first layer, I'm then able to control it, and then once I've done that first layer, usually I'll come back and I'll do several other layers.
So do you specifically use a type of tape at all?
Yeah, this is actually I think it's a 3M product. I got it from Bunnings, and it's like a builder's paint, so it actually minimises the bleed as opposed to another masking tape, a general one. You actually get quite a bad bleed with it, and then it's hard to fix.
Yeah, sort of the beauty about what you're doing in comparison to a lot of other artists, and this is very much sort of like pop art.
Yes, yeah.
Doing, I mean, Lichtenstein, Andy Warhol,
Yeah.
But you really use the primaries themselves directly out of the tubes to get what you want. And
Yeah.
probably from what I can see right then, probably a couple of layers as well.
Yeah, so depending on the translucency of the colour, like for instance my yellow is quite translucent, so I might need, you know, a couple of layers. Some I need up to 6 layers.
Yep.
But I just work with, I see how it looks once I've done it.
So how did you get to meet Art?
I actually haven't met Art Simone face to face with the social media connections, and I actually saw through a friend of mine, because he wears a lot of beautiful wigs made by a fellow called Mikey, Unicorn Mains by Mikey in Melbourne. And I saw their Instagram feeds and it was just stunning, you know, just beautiful. And then I got to know sort of Art Simone through that and loved what she does. She's very inspiring in the queer art scene. You know, she has a brilliant message, especially for young people coming into, you know, the queer art scene, or just being authentic, being yourself and being creative. I think it's a beautiful thing.
You got married at a young age to a very religious person.
Yeah, that's right. You know, very sexually repressed, and also, you know, domestic violence situation, and yeah, so it wasn't a good way to live in my early years, but at the same time, it's actually made me who I am today. So
yeah, you were saying that you basically sort of fled from that situation one morning and never looked back.
Yeah, that's right. And
I'm not doing this anymore.
That was the beginning of this journey, really, is that self-discovery. And being able to express all these things I couldn't initially.
Yeah, one of the pieces that first stood out for me when I first saw your work, we started to talk, was Sister Midnight, just a really dynamic piece.
That was actually a beautiful photo. I saw it in an Oyster magazine, and the original inspiration behind it is by photographer Elvis DeFazio, and that's her model Annabelle Barber. And there was something about that image that really jumped out at me, and that's usually what happens is I see an image and then automatically, so if it's a photograph, I'll automatically see a graphic or a visual on how I can translate that into a painting.
So the piece that says Meluxine, what is Meluxine? Is that her name or?
Yes, she's a model.
Yeah.
That's also done by a photographer friend of mine, Jade Martin. She works with a latex designer, which is what Meluxine, the model, is wearing, is one of his latex outfits. So they're friends of mine as well. And I saw that image of theirs and I rang them up and said, oh, this is hot, like, can I paint that?
So what type of brushes have you got there?
I actually like, I don't mind what brand I use, but I actually like Taklon brushes. I like the feel of them. So I've experimented with different things and just find what feels good to me, really.
Okay. You've got another piece called Bombshell.
Yeah, Bombshell is actually an interesting one. I met her when I was working at Sexpo. I exhibited there for a couple of years and toured with them. And Bombshell was one of their headliners, Michelle Bombshell. She was the performers. And she actually came up to me and asked me to paint her. And so that was exciting because I actually knew the model face to face, and the image that I used was one that is from a photographer, Robert Alvarado, and he does a lot of pin-up work.
So was there any specific artist or person that's actually influenced you as you've gone along?
I really love Andy Warhol.
Okay.
Honestly, that's probably the only one that really jumps out at me. I do love a lot of other people's work, but that's the one that definitely inspires me.
Yes, Andy was an unusual character.
He was, and I love that, very eccentric and yeah.
Actually, he spent a lot of time in clubs too.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely my scene. So yeah, just doing this orange now. This one's a bit more translucent as well, so I find sort of with these more translucent colours, once I take this sort of mask off the first layer, I'm probably going to need a few more layers to get that depth.
And you actually got a brand name called Revenged.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
yeah, and it's you produce and license a lot of your images.
Yeah, so at the moment I have actually 13 designs. I've created my own beach towels and I've put 13 of my designs onto the towel. So that's going really well because people love beach towels, but nobody, not everybody wants frangipanis on their beach towel. Yeah. So some people get beautiful ladies. And I've got a online store where I actually sell them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What actually, if people want to come in and see your work, what is your website?
I have 2 websites.
Yeah.
So I have AnitaNevar.com and then for the merchandise, revenged.com.
Cool. You can go in and have a look at what Anita's doing in there.
Okay, so I'm going to have to sort of work down to this section, so I'll just get rid of the masking tape first so I can work into the hair there. I might as well pull the rest off.
Easy peasy.
Yep.
Got the line. Fantastic.
There you go, a nice bleeding lines, which we'll come back and tidy up later. So
Fantastic.
that's what I love about this first layer, is it don't have to be too neat. We can kind of be a bit messy, and then as we put the next layers on, I can refine that.
Now the piece Evil A, is that you in a gas mask?
That is me in a gas mask.
What are you trying to say with that piece?
It was actually one of the very first photographic shoots I went to, and it was a fetish shoot with a photographer from Sydney.
Yeah.
And that's when I was coming out of my repressed, state and wanting to experiment. And I met him at an art show, and he was doing these shoots, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to just step out and do something that's really scary and see where this goes. And so Evil A was born, and he produced some images for me in this mask that actually was so inspiring and had empowered me so much that I turned one of them into this painting. So that's pretty much finished the orange. So I'm going to move on to the black, and what I'll do next is just mask those lines back up again so I get a clean start.
Now you, unfortunately before COVID stepped in, you were going to a fantastic club called the Beat Mega Club. We got some great footage of the guys and girls doing what they do, and they are outrageously colourful and outlandish. It's quite incredible.
Yeah. Yes, we were supposed to be.
Yeah, unfortunately COVID changed a lot of that, but fantastic club for gay and lesbian people, and also transgender and the queer guys that do the drag queens, which is what we're doing right now with Art Simone. But that looks like it's an absolutely outrageous place to be in at the best of times. And everybody's just being themselves. They're being what they want to be.
That's right, definitely an institution in Brisbane. It's been there for many, many years, and you can go there and be yourself, which is fantastic. Yeah, and we were meant to be filming there, like you say, and with COVID and the club actually shutting down, we had to change plans. But Art Simone was actually going to come in and do an actual performance for us on that night as well. So we've changed plans a little bit, but we do have a future project in the wings, which is we're going to actually do an independent film, and we will, when the club opens, come back and then film the drag queens and have an even bigger story adventure to tell, which will be wonderful. And it's a beautiful place because everybody is just being themselves. There's no judgment, it's full acceptance, and that's what this is about, is empowering people to just be who they want to be.
I'm liking those brushes, they do a good job.
Oh, I love Taklon brushes. Tried so many, and they just, I don't know, something about it makes it flow beautifully, and I don't get the brush strokes.
Yeah,
I can work it really easily.
Well, as a successful artist, apart from your brand Revenged, you also do a lot of private commissions for people as well, and particularly with the gay community. And most of the gay community is quite artistic anyway, but that's great that you can do that too.
Yeah, and I love private commissions. I love working with people and capturing their essence, and so I do get a lot of requests, and everything's different. I get a bit of variety, which is wonderful. And it's also that personal touch as well. I mean, I know I do love to connect with people when I'm painting them like this, when I select them, but when they select me, it's very personal to me as well.
And you also do limited editions of your work too.
Yes.
Which is great because your originals do go for a good price. So the limited editions are something that people can actually purchase and have on their walls without it costing them a fortune too. So. Yeah,
that's right. So I do like to sort of cater for everybody so that everybody can enjoy the art as well.
So you were also involved with Sexpo for some time. What position did you have with them?
Yeah, I actually travelled with Sexpo for a couple of years nationally, and I was their resident erotic artist. And prior to me, they hadn't had any visual artists there before, so it was a great addition to the show. So I would have my my big setup, a big wall actually next to the main stage, and would talk to people about erotic art and showcase my work at the same time. It was actually a really interesting and fun time.
And there's another piece that you've got called The Businessman, and there's a fairly androgynous man kissing a businessman.
Yes. And they're actually, believe it or not, friends of mine.
Yeah.
And the original photograph that I worked off is from a lady, she's called Shadow Zone Photography. She's in Melbourne. And the backstory of that is they were all having dinner one night, and these friends of ours said, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I pretended I was the businessman, you know, on away, and I've fallen in love with this other man along the way, so let's pretend we're kissing. And then the photo came about, and as soon as I saw it, it was so powerful that I had to paint it.
You know, you've got a couple of pieces here where you've got one called Sax Man and another one called Swoon, which actually brings the music side of your art into it as well.
Yeah. Saxman Spy, he is James, that's his name, James Saxman Spy, and he's a saxophonist MC. He actually does a lot of work in the clubs in Sydney. And then Swoon is another friend of mine, he's a musician, and he actually plays beautiful, beautiful work all the way around sort of Brisbane and Sunshine Coast. So again, it's people that actually inspire me creatively, and when I see something of them that my imagination picks it up and off I go with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, Anita, you actually have some scenes that you've actually set up in bedrooms and otherwise, and one you've got called Lolita in a home interior design. Explain to me how you did that.
Yeah, well, I actually started experimenting with stock photos, and I know there are websites where you can actually, they have set up art in situ, but I thought, look, I wanted to do something a little bit different myself, so I actually bought some stock photos and then experimented with putting my art into it to make it look like it was shot in a setting.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I do like those sort of more retro, you know, out of the norm, standard sort of situations, so yeah, just a bit of experimentation, really.
Well, it just enables people to see what potentially these could look like in their home for a start.
That's right, yeah.
I suppose in a sense you could actually ask people to send them photos of their homes so that you could put paintings in there without them having to
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
You've got a piece called Allure that you ended up having in the Big Brother TV series.
Yes, I did. That actually was painted for the series back in 2008. And the producers of the show got me to paint 5 pieces, and they were throughout the living areas, and that one sat proudly in the kitchen for the whole series.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So I've still got a fair bit of black to do, but what I'm going to do is actually move on to the pink and come back to that black a little bit later. So I'll do these lips down here.
And to get on the show, the Queensland Government got behind you with a START grant in conjunction with the Creative Alliance, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that was actually a real bonus, applying for that grant and having them come on board. And once I'd explained to them the concept of the show and what I'd be doing, especially supporting the LGBTQ community, yeah, they were very much interested. So that's been very helpful, and it's actually good to see that support for the arts.
Absolutely it is. And then in saying that, Carolyn Edlin from Artsy Shark in the United States has been a bit of a guide and mentor for you as well in what she does.
Yeah, she's been wonderful. She's actually a great arts advisor. She's got her own courses, and she's been very instrumental in helping me with all sorts of things, from building my foundations to my branding, and lovely person to speak to, and a wealth of knowledge. So highly recommended to anybody that wants to advance their career further, talking to Carolyn.
And we've got another piece called Obsessions. It looks like it's a triptych, but I think it might be one painting, but fascinating piece of work as well.
Thank you. That was actually one of my very early pieces, and I painted that because at the time I was obsessed with certain things like, sexuality and food. As you can see, there's a woman, she's got food pouring down her head, and so I put the 3 pieces together. And then at the time I was really quite in love with doing those sort of flared out lines, symmetry. So Obsessions has been, again, a very popular and iconic piece of mine.
Well, you've got a little bit to do, so what we're going to do is I'm going to let you work for a while, and then we'll come back and see how you're going.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Anita, well, you have powered ahead there, and it looks like it's almost complete, but what else do you have to do?
Okay, so pretty much all I've got left now is putting a bit of feathering in that hair to give it a bit more detail and texture. I've got these special brushes, Taklon brushes still, but they're quite jagged, so it lets me give those little wispy pieces there. So I pretty much just put a tiny bit on the end of my brush, and then I'll just go through and I'll flick like that all over the place. So I'll come back and I'll do put a bit of black in, a bit of orange.
So you're actually in a UK TV series as well called Frisky Business. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was actually a very fun show, and that was done by sex toy company Love Honey. And Love Honey actually are big supporters of my work. I've got it in their head office, and they do a series in the UK where they actually go around and interview people on subjects around sex and sexuality. And so they got me on to one of their TV series and also had my art in the background. So that was a lot of fun, getting to talk about things that I'm passionate about and bring the art into it as well. So sexual empowerment, that's what it's all about.
That's an unusual name.
Yeah, so Frisky Business. It's a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, but also serious and talking to people about how we can empower each other.
Well, it's been a fantastic day, Anita, and your work is amazing, provocative, without a doubt. And I was just noticing as we've been going along that you actually have your own brand of paint as well, because you just couldn't find really what you wanted. So you've developed that, which is fantastic as well. I mean, very, very dynamic young woman.
Yeah, thank you. So that brand of paint will be on my website and with my merch line as well.
Beautiful stuff. Well, as you can see, folks, we're just bringing up the final piece at the moment, which looks amazing. I think Anita's done a fantastic job, and thank you so much for being in the Colour in Your Life studio, being part of what we do, and I'm quite sure that the world will be fascinated about the young woman that you are.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, fantastic day, Anita.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you.
That was really cool, and thanks to Art Simone for lending us obviously his time and image to do this, but thanks very much for being on the show.
Thanks, Graham.
That was fantastic. Now, if somebody wants to come in and see your paint line and your branding and everything that you're doing, what's your website address? Okay,
so for my art, it's anitanevar.com, and for my merchandise, revenged.com.
And we would also like to thank the Caldera Wildscapes Gallery as well, which is where we are in our new studio for Colour in Your Life, for fantastic people. You can have a look at their website as well. They have some amazing art. And of course, come into Colour in Your Life at colorinyourlife.com.au and have a talk to us. If you'd like to be on the show, most welcome to. You obviously got a grant to do this, which is pretty cool.
Fantastic,
really
very helpful.
And thanks to all the people that have actually worked with you as well to make this happen. I think that's just great. But as we always say, and we're sort of moving on, regardless of what's happening in the rest of the world, remember, until we see you next time, make sure you put some colour in your life. Bye now, guys.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.